Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings broadcast. I am your not quite yet 3 sheets to the wind host, Rick. So last week I kind of took a detour. I announced that I was going to talk about whiskey and, the events of the week kind of made it to where I had to do something. A little different in honoring Rush and that kind of stuff. So, but tonight, there is, I don't even know how I got away this long without doing a show like this. I mean, come on, the title of the show is Whiskey Musings. To not have a episode, at least one episode talking about whiskey is pretty much blasphemous. And it's taken me 42 episodes. On the 42nd episode, here we are. And this is what I'm going to talk about tonight. So I know the question on everybody's mind is, which is the proper way to spell whiskey? With an E or with just the Y? And that's just one question that we're going to attack tonight. But before I get into this, I want to say thank you all to my subscribers. I try to do this at the beginning of the show every week. I got to tell you, it is incredible. You cannot understand the feeling that you get when you come in and you look at your chat window and you see people in the chat who are willing to jump in and talk to you, say hello, talk to each other, things like that. So I'll be honest with you. This is making my heart swell. What I bring to you is entertaining enough that you want to come and spend a period of your life, out of your life, with me on whatever journey we end up with. I really appreciate it. I totally appreciate it. And now, just because of that, I'm going to give a shout out to a few of the people out there. We've got Blix74, we've got Peace World, we've got Addy, we've got the #1 unicorn of the universe, Captain Unicorn. Kirk is in the chat as well. So thank you very much for joining. I hope that this is going to be entertaining for you. It was certainly interesting for me, obviously, to kind of go through and learn a little bit about the liquid nectar that I so enjoy. So let's go ahead and get started. First, number one thing is, how is the word whiskey spelled? Now, I spell it with an E. And the reason why I spell it with an E is because I'm flippin' American, and we do it that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's right. It also doesn't necessarily mean that that's wrong either. Because in reality, the Scottish and the Canadians are the 2 top countries that spell it just with a Y. The Irish and the Americans are the ones that toss in the E. So the truth is, you don't have to worry. They're both right. They are both right. It's kind of like gray and gray, Gray, Grey. It's fine to spell it either way because both are correct. Although if you really want to break it down in terms of the language, you would use the EY variation for the whiskeys that are developed in both Ireland and America. And you would use just the Y for those that are developed in Scotland and in Canada. Now, there are a ton of whiskeys out there. I mean, it actually turns out during my research that whiskey is like the #1 distilled spirit that is drank all across the world. I mean, even India has its own set of whiskey, and that is the #1 alcohol beverage that is consumed in India, I found. But the funny thing about it is the Indians don't actually export a lot of their whiskey. They do a little bit, but not a lot. It's mostly kept in country. So, if you happen to go to India and get a hold of some India whiskey, India distilled whiskey, give it a try. See if you like it. I can tell you that from my perspective, whiskey is literally all about the taste. It is all about how it tastes to the drinker. And whiskey is also used in multiple mixed drinks as well. It's not just drank, straight and on the rocks. Now, the funny thing about whiskey is that whiskey is a grain alcohol. It is made out of grain, okay? But the different types of grain will actually indicate, and their content, how much of them are actually a part of the liquid itself, and the making of the liquid will actually determine what type of whiskey it actually is. Along with that, you also have the location where it was distilled and created, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So, whiskey, the word whiskey, actually comes from both the Celtic and the Gaelic. So, for those of you that don't know, Celtic is Irish, Gaelic is Scotch. Words that are adaptations of the Latin phrase aqua vitae. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. I am not even going to pronounce both the Celtic or the Gaelic version. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I would end up mincemeating them anyway. But the point is that the Latin phrase aqua vitae actually has the meaning water of life. Now think about that for a minute. They named this alcohol, or the derivative from this etymology for the word, comes from the meaning water of life. Now, okay, Peace, I see you. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you in another time. Come back next week. I'll have something hopefully that'll be a part of what you have. Peace out. All right. So, coming back to the water of life. Now, the earliest account, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the earliest direct account of whiskey making was in Scottish records right around 1494. Now, there are some reports that it was actually done a little earlier than that, anywhere from like 1100 to 1300. And the reason why they say that they're not sure, because obviously there aren't any records. I mean, unless somebody builds a time machine and goes back to verify, I don't think we're ever going to know. But the reality of it is that the alcohol has been around for a very long time, and it seems to have come from, in particular, from the Scotch. So that being said, we say the Scotch, and that literally is a whiskey. It is Scotch whiskey, and this is an example of one right here. This is the Balvenie. This is a double wood. I'm going to be bringing this up a little bit more in terms of understanding what the label looks like, but and how you can kind of determine what the whiskey actually is in its making. But Scotch is a whiskey. It's Scotch whiskey. And then, of course, there's my favorite, the Irish. This particular one, this is, Jameson Black Barrel. This is an Irish whiskey. And there are specific criteria that have to go into that. And this can get really scientific. I'm going to try not to dive into it that much. But I do got to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of information about it. So, we also have the American style, which tends to be more in the line of the bourbon part. And for anybody that's a drinker of bourbon, you know that bourbon generally comes from two distinct areas. You have Tennessee and you have Kentucky, and there are specific requirements for both, believe it or not. I mean, this if somebody was a scientific buff, they could really get into this. The main thing about the whiskeys, though, is that they are made from grains. So they're made from things like, corn, barley, and rye. There's rye whiskey. There's different types of mashes. They can do malts of the grains. And it's real interesting in the fact that they actually use the leftovers from beer in order to make the whiskey. Now, one thing that's common across all of them is that the whiskey is aged in an oak, generally a white oak barrel. Now, some of the oak barrels are actually burned on the inside before they put the alcohol in it. Some of the other ones, they don't burn the inside of it. So, as a part of the distilling process, there is a bunch of things that go into it, and the different flavors that you get. In fact, even the color that you get coming out, like the color here, this is actually due to the wood that was used and the leaching of the wood. So, realistically, if I was caring about it, I'd be a little disgusted over the fact that I'm actually drinking something that has leached out of wood. But the reality of it is that this produces the raw alcohol. Now, after the raw alcohol comes out, they do different things to it. They distill it more. They may age it more. They do all kinds of different things with it. It's very, very rare that you actually get a direct from cask. That's what they call it, a cask bottled whiskey, because realistically, that alcohol is really, really strong. So here's something that I think a lot of people may or may not know. I mean, if you're a connoisseur of alcohol, you might know this, but most alcohols in the U.S. are done on ratings of what's called proof. And a proof is actually twice the actual percentage by volume. So if somebody tells you that an alcohol is, let's say, 100 proof, that means that the alcohol in the bottle is actually 50% alcohol by volume, ABV. So most of your whiskeys are somewhere around, say, 40 to 140 proof. So meaning that they're somewhere between 20 to about 70% alcohol. The cask level strength can be higher than that. And so that's part of the reason why they don't bring it out with that. So what they'll do is they'll take that cask strength and they'll actually break it out into, they'll mix it with something, most likely water. And so some of the flavor that you actually get, depending upon the whiskeys, is coming from the water that is used to bottle it. So you've got, as far as the flavor goes, you've got the wood that it's been sitting in for aging. You have the actual grain itself that's being used, and then how they process the grain and the malt. And then you have, on top of that, you have the water, and then, of course, any other kind of flavoring that they might add. Now, you know that there are, whiskeys that are out there like Fireball, as an example. So they put a cinnamon into the whiskey in order to flavor it. Then there's these other abominations, and I am going to call it an abomination because, to be honest with you, this particular one, I tried it. I was actually given it as a white elephant gift, and I tried it, and to me, it is literally disgusting. But that being said, this is called the Ghost Dog, and it is ghost pepper whiskey. This stuff is very, it's got a really good spice to it. It's got a really big kick. Okay. But obviously, I mean, they've infused all kinds of stuff. I mean, you have like apple flavored now. You have honey. Tennessee honey was one that I really kind of liked at one point. Thankfully, I grew out of it. Thankfully, I did grow out of it as far as like the Tennessee honey is concerned. But That being said, they have been doing different things with the different alcohols. They've been putting different things in order to gain different flavors. And as far as that goes, hey, whatever palate, whatever taste your palate really likes. I can tell you from experience that I am really not into scotches. And the reason why I'm not into scotches, I actually found out because whenever I've tasted a scotch, even like this Balvenie, I mean, at one point I liked the Balvenie. This is the double wood. And again, I'm going to point out what that means. But the Balvenie and a lot of the scotches that I've had, they taste to me like somebody had an ashtray and dumped an ashtray into the distilling process. Well, I found out why. And it's because what they do is they actually cook the malt and roast the malt over the top of a peat moss fire. And as a part of the process to make scotch, they let the smoke from the peat moss fire go up into and run around the malt. And that's why you get that smoky flavor from it. Now, you can limit the smoky flavor a little bit by, doing things like distilling and actually even chilling. So like if you chilled your scotch, you could mellow it out a little bit. But as a part of the process, it's grabbing the smoke from the roasting of the malt. Now, Irish whiskey, which I prefer, doesn't do that. They do roast their malt, but they don't allow the smoke from the same kind of scenario. They don't allow the smoke to touch the malt. And so because of that, you don't get the smoky flavor that you normally would off of, say, a scotch or something along those lines. Now, here in America, we kind of focus on our bourbons. And the reason why is obviously due to the fact that you've got, Jack Daniels. Hello, Jack Daniels is a very distinctive looking bottle. It is a very distinctive taste. It's pushed, and the whole Tennessee whiskey kind of thing. Now, as far as like the Tennessee whiskey and the Kentucky whiskeys are concerned, both of them being bourbon, both of them being bourbon, they have strict requirements to actually be given those labels. One of the things as far as like bourbon is concerned, so for an example with bourbon, and let me get this up here because I got to take a look. So bourbon is actually made from the mash, and this is a requirement here. This is based on United States regulations, federal regulations for how this is made. So bourbon has to be made from a mash that consists of at least 51% corn. And then it has to be aged inside brand new charred oak barrels. You can't take like an old wine barrel or something like that and age this in order for it to be considered bourbon. And corn whiskey. So here in America, we deal with corn whiskey. So corn whiskey by the United States federal regulations require it to be made from a mash that consists of at least 80% corn and is not aged. Now, the funny thing about that is that's actually moonshine. I mean, moonshine is corn whiskey, and that is one of the categories of whiskeys is moonshine. Moonshine is made out of corn, and it is a corn whiskey, but it cannot be aged. But if it is aged, so you do have the ability to age it. So I'm sorry, I can't say you cannot, but if you do age it, it has to be aged in uncharred or otherwise used barrels. So in order for corn whiskey to be put in place, it has to consist of 80% corn, and it has to be either not aged, meaning you're getting it cask strength, or you age it in a uncharred or otherwise used barrel. Now, Aging. So aging basically is a process by which they take the alcohol, they throw it in the barrel, they stick it up in a place, and they let it sit for a specified period of time. Now, in most cases, you'll see aging happen probably a minimum of 3 years. In fact, during my research, most of the locations like Irish and Scottish whiskeys, they require a minimum of 3 years of aging before you can bottle them. They don't necessarily even allow cask strength. You actually have to age it first. In some cases, it could be aged up to, 50 years in some cases. Now, in this particular case with this Scotch, and this is a Balvenie again, and I'm going to try and keep the light off of it, but this number right here, the number 12, that's how long it's actually been aged. So this has been sitting around in a oak barrel for a minimum of 12 years. Now, the thing about it is, though, this is the double wood. So this is called double wood, and the reason for that is because it was actually aged in 2 different barrels. So it was aged for 12 years, but it was aged in 2 different woods, 2 different types of woods to make the different flavors come out. And it has to be 2 distinct casks. Now, one of the things that you will definitely hear is you will hear things like, okay, what's a straight whiskey versus, say, a blended whiskey? Well, realistically, a straight whiskey is a whiskey that has been distilled at the same distillery and has not been mixed with anything else. So when you grab a bottle of Jim Beam, for an example, you have Kentucky straight bourbon. So what that means is, first of all, it passed the requirements to have the word Kentucky put on it. But it also is a straight bourbon, meaning that it's not been mixed with anything else. This is just a single distillery. It hasn't been mixed with anything other than whiskeys from that same batch. Okay. Now, you'll hear a lot of Canadian whiskeys will come out and they'll be like blended. For an example, Crown Royal. Crown Royal, generally speaking, is a blended whiskey. Now, blending a whiskey means that they are basically taking different whiskeys from either different distilleries, different batches. It could be any kind of mix mash of anything. It could also be blended from the type of mash. Instead of being like a corn whiskey or something like that, it'll be blended in some kind of way. It's a mixture of different types of whiskeys. And so some people actually prefer the blended versions better than they actually prefer the straight versions, because you'll get more complex flavors and different types of flavors within the whiskey. Now, you'll also hear things, especially when dealing with Scotch, okay? Especially when focused on Scotch, you will hear stuff like a single malt Scotch. So a single malt is, again, made from a single distillery, but it's made from a mash that only uses one singular particular malted grain. So if you have a single malt whiskey, what you could end up having is you would have a single malt whiskey that is only utilizing, say, corn or barley or rye. So you could have like a rye single malt that would classify as a single malt whiskey. Now, malting is actually the process by which they take care of the grains. They mash them up, they turn them into more of a powdery type. It's a little more difficult for me to explain, but the malting process is actually a process that they do ahead of time to the grains, and it's that kind of malt that goes into the whiskey. Now, a blended malt whiskey would be obvious. I mean, it could be a mixture of single malts from different distilleries. Okay. Now, if you go to a store and you find a whiskey and you look at it and you say, okay, it's labeled pure malt or just plain old malt without anything else, just the word malt. it's almost certainly a blended malt whiskey, according to somebody on Wikipedia. Okay. So, again, these are very complex. This is amazing. It's an entire industry. And not only that, but it's a lot of flavors and changes and things like that. All these different things go into it. So, you could literally spend a lot of time digging into this stuff. Now, one thing that I did notice in terms of the American type of whiskeys, there's actually a couple of categories that they classify. So one of them we've already talked about, the blended whiskey, but there's two other classifications. One of them is a light whiskey. And a light whiskey, by definition, is produced in the U.S. at more than 80% alcohol by volume and it has to be stored in unused or uncharred, brand new oak containers. So that would be a light whiskey. Otherwise, you have a spirit whiskey. The other category that they have is a spirit whiskey. Well, basically what that means is that there is a mix of neutral spirits. So other than whiskey, it's another neutral spirit. And by neutral spirit, I think they mean things like vodka or something like that. But there's a mix of other neutral spirit in the bottle, and it has to be at least 5% of certain stricter other categories of whiskey in order to be considered a spirit whiskey. Okay. Now, as I was talking about, there's Tennessee whiskey, there's Kentucky whiskey, Tennessee bourbon, Kentucky bourbon. Jack Daniel's is the one that's most notable out of the list. But the main difference between a Tennessee whiskey and other whiskeys is that it must be filtered through sugar maple charcoal before the aging process. Okay. And that particular segment, or that particular interesting little thing that they do extra, is known as the Lincoln County process, where Jack Daniel's was created. Now, so that's particular specifically to Tennessee. Tennessee bourbon has to be filtered through the sugar maple charcoal. Okay, it has to be filtered through that first before it goes into the aging process. Okay, now, almost every country in the world makes their own whiskeys. You have Australian whiskeys, you've got Canadian, you've got Danish, English, Finnish, Georgian, obviously Irish, Scotch. I just told you about Indian not too long ago. So there's a ton of different whiskeys out there. Now, some of them have rules and regulations. Canadian law requires it. Scotch and Irish, they have requirements in their books. American have requirements in their books. But one country I was kind of surprised at, and apparently they have this. It's the Japanese. Japan makes their own whiskey. Now, I don't know why I would be surprised at that. I honestly don't, because sake, I don't know exactly what sake is made out of, but maybe that's what they're referring to when they talk about Japanese whiskey being sake. But I should probably look that up, or maybe one of my wonderful listeners over here would be able to look it up. But there's a ton of different things with regards to whiskey. And it, like I said, it is one of the most popular drinks that are out there. There's Swedish, there's Taiwanese, there's Welsh, there's the Japanese. Like I said, they've got, it's the Japanese actually, and I just popped this up. So the Japanese actually use a base of mash of malted barley that's been dried in kilns, and it's fired with a little peat, just a tiny bit. Oh, you're right. So Kirk just popped up in the chat. Thank you very much, Captain Kirk. Okay. He basically said that sake is rice wine. Well, okay. I don't remember. I don't drink sake on a regular basis, so couldn't tell you that. Anyway, but apparently they do something very similar to the Scotch, but not quite, or to the Scottish, but it's not as much peat moss. They just do a little bit of peat instead of a lot of peat like the Scots do. But yeah, just about, I mean, God, I mean, whiskey is so popular. Whiskey is the popular drink for a lot of people. It's for all over the world. And I got to tell you, I mean, at least in the country music, like American country music, whiskey features in a lot of songs. I like country music. I like a lot of songs that talk about whiskey. In fact, this show started off, believe it or not, it started off as an idea for a radio program that would play music. And what it was is I did a play on the word musings. So if you look up the definition of musings, you have musings as in, and then you have the muse, which the muse was a mythological creature that would play songs and play a harp. And so I actually chose to have the Whiskey Musings name in a radio broadcast that would have been for music. And that was where the idea came from. Now, I turned this into an audio kind of a talk show scenario because, to be honest with you, I don't really have any kind of an internet radio station. And of course, there's a whole bunch of things like licensing and everything else I get away without the licensing because I'm producing my own content. I mean, I am the show. So, you know, and the things that I talk about, the topics that I bring up and that kind of stuff. So that's where Whiskey Musings came from. Was a play on the word musing, you know, thinking, because I do that. And that's where the tagline came from. When I drink, I think, because I do. There's times where I go and I set up a, like fireplace outside. I love being in the outdoors. I do. I mean, it's kind of weird. I don't do it a lot. It's not my regular day job. I mean, my regular day job ties me to the city. But if I had a choice, if I had the choice and could do it money wise, I would be out in the woods, out in the sticks, you know, that kind of thing. But as far as that goes, when I sit by a campfire, I'll sit and I'll think. And I'll think about different things. I'll think about things that, you know, happened during the week, or I'll think about something that is abstract. And that's where the thought process for this show came up. Now, I'm pretty sure the phone is working. I'm fairly certain it is. So I'm going to go ahead and toss that up. All right. So if you have a comment, question, whatever, and you want to be on the program with the audio portion through the phone line, please feel free to give me a call. 360-309-0997 if you're listening, if you're not watching on YouTube, which actually that's the only place you're getting it right now. I am thinking of, and I do kind of have an idea of potentially branching, not only doing just the YouTube broadcast, but also doing a audio portion as well, audio only portion as well. But that being said, I do have the phone number up, so if you want to call in, please feel free, you know, and I'll try and get you on the program. But anyway, so that has been the inspiration of the Whiskey Musings, was that, hey, I'm sitting out here, I'm sitting by a fire because, I mean, nothing really beats a campfire or even a fire in a fireplace. I mean, nothing really beats it. Now, I tried to do this last week. My audio problems got in the way. So here, I'm gonna bring this up. Let me see. There she is. So there we go. So now I have my fireplace in the background. This is kind of what I wanted for sit and relax. There's something about a crackling fire and a good glass of whiskey. All right. So I have a caller coming in. Let's make sure. I'm sure this will work. I'm fairly sure. Let me go ahead and bring them on in. Hello, caller.
Yeah, like a large meat lovers.
Oh, you're funny. You're funny. Hey, everybody. This is Captain.
Pizza Hut? I'm sorry.
No. Come on now. Seriously? All right. Whatever. Anyway. Okay. So let me. God, it's been so long since I've had somebody on the phone. I've popped this off. Okay. Wait a minute. I got to get my other one back. I changed my backgrounds. Hold on. There we go. All right, so we are here. Captain Kirk, I'm just going to say this. I appreciate you coming on the show, not only in just the audio portion, but when you join in on the video side as well. I know we didn't plan on anything here, but that's cool. So you're here. You're on the program. What did you want to say, sir?
I want a pizza. Give me a pizza.
You're funny. You are really funny with the pizza. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay. All right, moving on.
I take umbrage with your dislike of flavored whiskeys.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold up. Hold up. I didn't say I didn't like flavored whiskey. I didn't like the ghost pepper one. That one is absolutely, to me, that is atrocious.
That one sounds like crap.
Okay. I mean, I'm sorry. To me, it does. But now, that being said, I mean, I did like, Tennessee honey when it came out, the Jack Daniel's honey mix. I did like that. In fact, I do like it as a part of a hot toddy because it kind of mixes the honey as well as the whiskey when you do a hot toddy for like a sore throat. I do like I like Fireball. I do like Fireball. But other than that, I don't think I'm really into anything else. I'm not really too into apples, period. So I think the apple is kind of out. But go ahead. Hit me.
Well, the Jim Beam peach or the apple with Sprite is really good. Okay.
I may have to try that.
Yeah, I'm looking at my cabinet right now.
Okay.
I can see the peach. I have some Tennessee honey hiding in the back. Of course, you got to have Fireball. Everyone has Fireball.
Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly what kind of whiskey that is, but yeah, everybody's got to have Fireball.
Oh, generic, whatever. It's a cinnamon stick in it. Now, I've been looking for BSB, brown sugar bourbon.
Right, brown sugar bourbon.
Because I prefer a little more flavor to the whiskey, because the standard just straight whiskey is not all that enjoyable.
What?
Unless you go for like the higher end stuff.
What? Wait, well, what? No, come on. Seriously? Have you ever tried this? You should give this a try. You really should give this a try.
No, I have not.
You should give this a try. And I'll tell you why. Because believe it or not, and during my research, they actually said that the Irish whiskeys tend to be a lot more smoother because they distill them differently, and because they don't have the hard smoky flavor because they don't put the malt over the smoke, so it results in a whiskey that's a little more smooth.
Okay. The only whiskey I've had that I truly enjoy straight was Chivas Regal 16-year.
Okay, so Chivas Regal
very good.
Chivas Regal, if I remember correctly, is a blended whiskey.
Well, then I guess I'm in the blended camp.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. I can't remember if it's a Canadian blend or if it's a blend from somewhere else. I'm going to have to look that one up. So here, I'm going to use the power of the Google. I'm actually pretty decent at this. Believe it or not, and it's scary, but let's see, where is... No! Oh my gosh, I was totally off. Wow. Okay. So just so everybody knows, it's a blended Scotch whiskey produced by the Chivas brothers, which is part of Pernod Ricard, which is a French company, so they are French.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it's a Scotch. It is a Scotch. So it's distilled in Speyside, Scotland. Scotland. What am I saying? Geez, okay, I'm halfway through the cup. All right. Anyway, moving on. So,
Okay, well, like I said, we like to go for the brown sugar bourbons, but
right.
apparently Heritage has sold the recipe, and they no longer make the brown sugar bourbon.
Really?
So, in trying to find a replacement,
okay.
I stumbled across something called Bubba's Secret Stills.
Ooh, hold on.
Which is another flavored. Yeah. The description is odd on their website. So I looked it up before I bought it.
Hang on just a second. Oh, it's a brown spice liqueur. Okay.
Yeah, what the hell's a brown spice?
Apparently it has something to do with brown sugar, maybe? I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe. But the flavor is more caramel bordering on butterscotch.
Yeah, so this is what
it's very sweet.
Okay, so Total Wine and More apparently carries it, and this is how they describe it.
That's where I got it.
Sweet and spicy, this secret recipe is fantastic with just the right amount of blended flavors, including nougat, spice, caramel, and brown sugar sweetness. Great to sip on, mix in your favorite cocktails, pour over ice cream, or use it in cooking and baking. Very interesting.
No, yeah, it's very good. Like I said, it's very sweet. It's not for the serious whiskey connoisseur.
Yeah, no, I would. Yeah, I wouldn't put anything sweet.
It's about as sweet as Fireball. It's that sweet.
Oh, really? See, now Fireball to me, I don't know if you remember the candy called Red Hots from way back in the day, but that Fireball reminds me of Red Hots. It really does. It brings me back to Red Hots. It's just.
No, my grandmother would mix Red Hots in the applesauce to eat it.
Oh, okay. Well, just for those of you who may be a little younger or may not know what Red Hots are, they were these little tiny red, and I got to get this right for the camera, but these little tiny red beads of basically cinnamon, and they came in a box, and the box had, I don't know, probably like 100 or so of these things in there. And so oftentimes what we would do is we would have competitions to try and see if anybody could eat the entire box or put the entire box in their mouth without spitting it out. Because, cinnamon is one of those flavors that, just the right amount of cinnamon works, like as in a cinnamon bun or a cinnamon sugar Pop-Tart or something like that. But if you go and throw it all in your mouth, it tends to become so spicy and it turns it into, I don't know, maybe potentially a ghost pepper kind of scenario. Whoops, wrong side. Ghost pepper. I mean, it's nasty. Oh man, it would get nasty. But we'd see how many you could actually eat. Red Hots and Atomic Fireballs, Blix says. His wife buys them for him. All right. Well, the atomic balls, if I remember right, the atomic fireballs are the big ones. Like they're kind of like what are those? Not gumballs. Jawbreakers.
Gumball sized.
Jawbreakers or gobreak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
not
the big old balls. Anyway, big old balls. God, here I go again. Wow, I'm gonna derail this myself.
Oh.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's cool.
Okay,
so
fine. Speaking of derailing, have you ever made apple pie moonshine?
No, but I have had it.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
Now
when you're outside in the fall around the campfire, it is awesome.
Okay, so go ahead and hit me with the brilliant recipe. Where does it come from? Moonshine, apple pie moonshine.
I haven't made it in a while. Mostly everyone else has made it for me.
Oh,
so I know
okay.
It's Everclear.
Yes, Everclear.
And if you can go over to Montana and get the higher strength stuff, it's even better.
Right. Okay.
Apple cider, apple juice, brown sugar.
Right.
And you heat the apple cider and apple juice, throw in the brown sugar, let that dissolve, let it cool, throw in your moonshine or your Everclear.
Right.
Then you throw it in a bottle with as many cinnamon sticks as you dare. sit for a few days.
Okay.
And the more cinnamon sticks you put in, and the longer you let it sit, the spicier it becomes.
Right.
And it is really good.
Yeah, so Everclear, just to kind of, because Everclear actually tosses into the whiskey level, it's 190 proof, which for those of you who can do math quickly, that's 80% alcohol.
Yeah, that's stuff you can only get in Montana.
Yeah, so apparently
Here you get the watered down version.
Yeah, so apparently it's bottled at different strengths. So you have a 60%, 75%, 94, 95% alcohol by volume. Now, for those that don't drink on a regular basis, I can tell you the higher the ABV, the more harsh the taste is going to be, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times where it's not. I mean, I've had there was outside of Black Barrel, the other whiskey that I really, really enjoyed was, it was Crown Royal, and it was Cask 16. It came in a black bag, and it was really good. I mean, really smooth. But they only made it for a short period of time, and it kind of, I don't know. It just, unfortunately, they only made it for a short period of time, so it just sort of disappeared after a while. But anyway. So that's cool. So are you planning, you know what? Are you planning on making some this fall? Are you going to make some of that?
No.
Why not?
Plan to.
Well, plan on it now so that you have it.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll do a report on that. Well, now I got to make a trip to Montana.
Well, it's not like it's that far away for you. I mean, shoot, you just hop over Idaho and you're there.
Yeah, how thick is the Idaho Panhandle? I've never gone that far.
I honestly don't know, but I can tell you on a map, it certainly isn't as wide as the bottom is.
Wow, thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, well, I wear my badge proud.
Did you know water's wet?
Hey, the sky looks blue. Anyway.
Well, your blue would not be my blue. My blue could be green.
Actually, yeah, that is true. I once worked with a guy who was who literally was colorblind, and for him, red and brown were crossed. He couldn't. He had a hard time telling which was red and which was brown when we were punching down wires.
And we are derailed.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Come on, derailment is part of the show. I mean, seriously, if it wasn't fun and
we need a running
exciting,
counter on your show for this.
I need to do what?
A running counter of how many times we get derailed in a show.
Oh.
That would be funny.
Oh, don't make me. Oh, don't make. Have you seen those clips? Like when somebody sits here. Oh, for an example, the guy that they're trying to bring on as the AG. I was watching a videotape. Sorry, I'm going to bring this out to you. Here we go. Track number 9. They were doing a counter on how many times he said And I think they got up to like 17 and quit counting. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to figure out a way to do that. Maybe it'll be some kind of a text thing on the screen where I can click on it and it'll show like, I don't know, maybe up in the corner, like right up here or something. It just shows how many times did Rick get derailed? Anyway. Oh, Addie, seriously, the chick in WWE with the sign. You mean the ring girl that she walks around with the sign,
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, all right. I would love to see that.
You know those girls wear bikinis, right?
Oh, you guys have to videotape that for me. If she's going to do it, you have to videotape it for me. Speaking of videotapes, I haven't forgotten, Addie, there's supposed to be some sort of videotape running around about you.
Wait, what?
I haven't forgotten about that. You think I have, but I haven't. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So So are you going to make that? Are you going to make apple pie? Come on, you got to make it.
The drink, yeah, sure, I'll do it this fall.
Okay. So if nothing else, I mean, at least I have something to look
basically,
forward
you have to make it in a gallon jug.
Oh, that's even better. You know, there is an actual process. I've seen those earthenware jugs that you see that you know, they kind of make fun of it in the movies and stuff, but there is actually a way to there's like a proper way to drink out of those things. You have to take it and like throw it over your arm and, you know, and tip it up with your arm or something like that. Yeah, there is an actual way, and that's a corn whiskey.
Okay, now I'm on a mission.
That's a corn whiskey.
I'm on a mission to get one of those jugs.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my God, we're going to okay. If you're still up in a year or 6 months, wherever it is from the fall.
Oh, I'll be here. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. Come on, give me a break. I'm going to keep this thing going. I don't care. I mean, I love my listeners. I love my viewers. I love all of you. I'll keep going. As long as you keep watching, I'll keep going. I'll come up with things and strange stuff and whatever. I mean, shoot. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do for future shows, but hey, you know what? That's part of the fun. It's whatever the thing takes you. Anyway. All right. Yeah. So you it's a date then. It's a date. With apple pie.
Derailed again.
You got it. Apple pie. It's a date. I like it.
Okay, fine.
All right.
Yeah, I really only called to throw in my 2 cents about flavored whiskeys.
You know, I mean, I'm sorry. I do like a few of them. I'm not really too much into the apple stuff. I'd like to try the brown sugar because I actually like brown sugar. So that one might not be too bad. I may have to like pop to a Total Wine and more.
Well, it'll be under a different name, but it's still because I've seen the new bottles. They're not the same shape. The other one was, well, have you seen the Suntory whiskey? That shape of bottle. That's what the old BSB used to be.
Okay,
but
hold
now
on.
It's a taller.
Suntory, Suntori?
Yes.
Well, let me see what I can do here.
Because I've done my own research over the years into whiskeys, and I came across Suntory, and it sounded interesting, and they sell it at Costco.
Okay, so hold on. There's 3 different bottles that I had popped up here. You got to tell me.
Yeah, one's like 1,500.
Yeah, well, this particular one. I'm over the age of 21. Yes, I am. I am over the age of 21. Okay, well, so this Suntory actually looks like this bottle. The if you look on the ghost pepper, if you can look on the screen once it pops up. I'm watching the stream, so give me just a second. There it is. So there's this bottle.
It doesn't matter. The old BSB is a little more.
Isn't it
corners and rounded?
Isn't it in a brown bottle too? It's not a clear bottle; it's a brown bottle.
No, it's clear.
Oh, it's clear. Okay. Well, maybe the whiskey in it.
I'm looking right at it. Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's cool. All right. So that's.
Anyway, they sold the recipe, and someone else is making it, and it's probably the same. I haven't bought the new version of it yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
I know "botton's" not a word.
I wasn't going to call it out.
Not a word.
Thank you. I wasn't going to call it out. I was leaving it alone. I was leaving it alone, but
sorry,
right.
I have been drinking along with you, so I'm a little.
Well, hey, that's the only way to enjoy the program. I tell everybody, make sure you grab your drink and let's go. It's at least that way my mistakes don't sound absolutely horrible. Or if they do, you end up laughing about them instead of something else. I mean, but I'm glad that I've got my audio issues kind of taken care of, because that was just bugging the hell out of me. Anyway.
Well, what was it last week? That was horrid.
Dude, I got to tell you, if you're going to invest in anything, you need to invest in good quality gear. That being said, I'm going to break this out to you. So I went and I purchased, and this is going to get a little technical, but I went and I purchased a bunch of sound cards because I got to run them all into my mixing board. I have a mixing board that has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ins. It's a 6 in with essentially 1 out. Yeah, maybe 2. And so this mixing board is a 6x2. It's actually like an 8. They call it an 8 because it's 6x2. But I saw gaps, I saw empties, and I needed to fill them. And so I went ahead and filled them about 6 months ago. And when I did that, I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to throw a USB hub in the way. And so I threw a USB hub in, and then it was a powered USB hub, but then I forgot the freaking power adapter. And so I kept thinking, what in the hell's going on? I keep losing some cards. I mean, like one card will work and then another card won't. And next thing you know, you end up losing, audio or whatever. Or then you get that horrible robotic voice or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm going, what in the hell is going on here? And I apologize for the language, but I'm like, what the hell? And so I go and I find out, like, I think I told you this, or at least I told somebody, maybe I told my wife. But anyway, I found that I hadn't plugged in the adapter. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the adapter. So I stick in the power adapter and I'm thinking, yay, that's solved my problem. But then Blix comes on and becomes my de facto buds person on audio and keeps telling me you sound like crap. And so because of that, I'm like, oh, what the hell is going on? So I start digging through and I start pulling cards. I get new cards. I change out cards. I turn cards, this card into that card. I do all these different things with these audio cards to try and find this problem. And it turns out it was the stupid USB hub. It was the dumb USB hub. So I pulled that one out, put a new one in, and separated the cards a little bit. And now I think I might have it figured out. That's what I did on Sunday. I mean, you guys need to understand. I'm sitting here and I'm hearing from everybody. I'm hearing from everybody. Audio is the key. If your video sucks, it's okay. But audio has to be like très magnifique in order to make this thing work. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, audio sounds horrible. I mean, somebody I don't even know realistically other than just a screen name somewhere is sitting here and telling me that I sound like caca. And I said, okay, fine. I got to get this figured out. And so I went through and I'm serious. I went and I bought a whole bunch of different cards and everything else. I was just like, man, this just sucks. Maybe it's the driver. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's that. Finally, I just said, screw it. I'm going to redo my system. So I started unplugging everything and plugging stuff back in. And now I think I've got the key. The key to make this all work and to make it all work properly. So hopefully from this moment forward, I will have a clear audio signal for everybody to hear. I don't care. The sad thing about this is I don't really care about the camera. I mean, I'll even turn off the camera in some cases. I don't care because I am not an Adonis. But my brain is magnificent here. This is the key. It's my looks are nothing, but my brain and my words are what really is key here. And so this is basically this is me, man. This is me. I am a highly intelligent, as Rush used to say, I fight with one part of my brain tied behind my back. He used to say that. I always laughed. But anyway. So Blix, I'm telling you, Blix, dude. I'm going to say dude. It's the omnipotent version of dude, okay? But anyway, Blix, you are my audio ombudsman. Or ombudsperson, whatever. I was hoping and praying that you would be here because you are the one who tells me the truth, who says, hey, this sounds like crap. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm telling you, I appreciate that. That's why I love my listeners. Okay. All right. So Blix at least admitted that he's a dude. So that's cool.
What does this have to do with whiskey? Oh my God.
Well, it has to deal with the drinking of whiskey. I mean, whatever happens, happens, right? Anyway. Yeah. So you were like, what the hell happened last week? Well, that's what happened. There you go. Long damn freaking story for nothing. But anyway. Gotta get that nectar. Oh, it's funny thing about this. Hey, just real quick. I mean, Kirk, I know I'm going to hold you on the phone for this one, but if you ever listen to the beginning of my show, there is a phrase in there by Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra used to drink Jack Daniels. He called it the nectar of the gods. And his formula was a 1-2-3 process. 1 glass, 2 cubes of ice, 3 fingers of Jack. That's what he drank on stage. When he was on stage, that's what he would do. So, there you go. 1, 2, 3, baby. 1, 2, 3. I prefer a little more ice in mine, but whatever. All right. Well, thank you very much for calling there, Mr. Kirk. As always, it is a pleasure.
My pleasure.
It is a pleasure. All right. So I'm going to let you go then, unless you have something else to say.
Nope, I got nothing.
All right. Perfect. Well, you have a wonderful evening, and we will we'll talk again sometime, I guess. Anyway.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
All righty. So, that's my sometimes co-host, Kirk. And I got to tell you, hey, you know what, Kirk? Your shows, every time you appear, you are the one that everybody comes to see. I don't know why. It just makes sense. But, I mean, you should check out the popular videos on my channel. They almost all of them include you. Wow. Okay. So we derailed that broadcast for sure. But again, whiskey, the #1 alcohol, distilled spirit across the world. There's a reason why we drink it. There's a reason why it's out there. I'm holding up the bourbon version right now, but I'm going to tell you, I love the Irish. Give it a try. Give it a try. Straight on the rocks. If you order something in Canada, you ask for whiskey neat, it's going to come without any ice in it. If you ask for it on the rocks, they're going to put rocks in it. You can ask for a shot. Some of these, like some of the bourbons, it's Tennessee actually plays this a lot. You'll hear Tennessee sipping whiskey. The reason why they call it sipping whiskey is because you're not supposed to drink it. You're supposed to sip it. You take a small shot and sip it. Okay? So, give it a try. Hey, you know what? There's so many different whiskeys. As Kirk just pointed out, there's sweet whiskeys, there's flavored whiskeys. If you don't like the regular style whiskey, there's a whiskey for everybody. You just got to find it. If you don't like Scotch, you can try Irish. If you don't like Irish, you can try bourbon. If you don't like bourbon, you can try Fireball. You can try, any of the flavored stuff. I mean, it is such a versatile drink. It is such a versatile alcohol. But I'm going to throw this PSA into this, okay? Mind your manners with it, okay? Don't drink too much. And if you do, definitely do not drink and drive. Hand the keys over to somebody. Find an Uber. Find a Lyft. Find a friend. Find a cab. Because none of this is worth your life. It's like when I got handed a license, and this is going to sound kind of strange, but when I got handed a license, okay, the very first thing that I was told is, this license does not replace your life. It doesn't replace an arm. It doesn't replace an eye. It doesn't replace the person's life that you take because of your negligence. It is a requirement to drink responsibly, and I expect all of my Whiskey Musings fans to do so. All of them. Okay? Now, that I think pretty much is it. I have talked your ear off for about an hour and 4 minutes, roughly, and I appreciate the time. Do me a favor, if you like the broadcast, go ahead and hit subscribe. Hit the little bell, because the bell is the notification button. If you don't want to deal with YouTube, you can watch other older episodes, not only on YouTube, but you can also do it on Rumble. I post them up there as well. And Rumbles, when you're on Rumble, a Rumble, sounds kind of funny, is the same as a like, as the like button here on YouTube. rumbles are the same thing over there. Otherwise, drink to your heart's content, but make sure that you do it responsibly, and we'll see you next time here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.